Steve told me that those babies weren't his. Then Steve shouted, "You are a real underscore underscore. How dare you have an affair? I can't stand you anymore. I want a divorce. I won't pay child support." With those words, he threw the divorce papers in my face. I was very angry and shocked. I had no idea he was planning something like this. "Fine, let's get a divorce," I said. I took the papers and filled out my section. "Here you go. My name is Kate. I'm a 32-year-old housewife. I met my husband, Steve, on a blind date. He was my age and I liked how he looked. I was immediately attracted to him, and he seemed to like me too. We started dating, and after a year we got married. We were very happy at first, but our happiness didn't last long. There was someone who ruined our life together, my mother-in-law. She would often come over during the day, and she treated me terribly. "Kate, carry my bag," she'd demand. She'd show up uninvited and make me bring her bag into the living room. "It's my precious bag, so be careful with it," she would say. When I put it on the couch, she'd say, "You should at least serve me some tea. You're such an inconsiderate wife." I couldn't understand why she acted this way, especially when she didn't think about my comfort. My husband was kind, but his mother was rude. I was upset that they were so different. She came over almost every day, and I was fed up. So I decided to talk to my husband. "Hey, your mom has been coming here every day. Can you ask her to come less often?" He seemed surprised. "What? My mom comes during the day." I was shocked. I thought you'd agree with me, but instead he said, "Well, why doesn't she stay until I get home? You should keep her around until I'm back. You should have asked her to stay until then. You're inconsiderate." I couldn't believe he was saying this. He even used the same word my mother-in-law used. It seemed like he was a mama's boy. I tried to explain, "No, it's just that your mom comes too often." He ignored my feelings and said, "It's fine. I'll call her. You should treat her well when she's here." After that, my mother-in-law became even more rude. She criticized me all the time, saying I was too slow at housework and cooking. She came over during the day and would have dinner with my husband at night before going home. It was hard, but I still loved my husband, so I didn't think about divorce yet. Then my mother-in-law started asking, "Are there any grandchildren yet?" We had only been married for about a year and a half, but she wanted grandchildren as soon as possible. She put a lot of pressure on me, and I was feeling stressed and depressed every day. So I asked my husband for advice. "Your mom keeps asking me about grandchildren. It's really hard for me," I said. But my husband's response was cold. "Well, she's getting older, so she must want to see her grandchildren. You should try your best to meet her expectations." I knew that, but why did he have to say it like that? I thought, wait a minute. Getting pregnant is between you and me, isn't it? I can't get pregnant on my own. Lately, my husband hadn't been cooperative at all. When I asked him to go out with me, he said he was too tired. He wouldn't have sex with me because his mom was visiting, and they would talk until late at night. I didn't understand why he was blaming me. My husband didn't care about me. He would say things like, "You're a lazy housewife. You complain about everything. You should be more grateful." But it was him who had asked me to be a housewife. He told me he wanted me to stay home after we married, so how could he say that to me? I started losing trust in my husband. The longer we were married, the more I saw his bad side. The kindness he had shown me when we were dating was gone. Now, he and my mother-in-law would insult me all the time, especially at meals. "You're not just inconsiderate, you're useless. You can't even have children. You're really useless," they'd say. One time, my husband even said, "Steve, you should get rid of her and find someone else. A younger woman who can have a baby." I couldn't believe he said that while I was right there in front of him. Little by little, I started to think about divorce. Then suddenly, I got sick and went to the hospital. To my surprise, I found out I was pregnant. I immediately told my mother-in-law and my husband. My mother-in-law said, "Well, you're finally pregnant. Good for you." She was surprisingly nice about it. But my husband's reaction was cold. "I see you're having a baby. Aren't you happy?" "Yes, I'm happy," I replied. But my husband didn't seem excited at all. He had blamed me for not being able to have a child, so I was confused. What was going on? I was shocked, but I decided that getting a divorce during pregnancy wouldn't be a good idea. Even though he wasn't a great husband, he was still the main provider since I was a full-time housewife. So I decided not to divorce him until after I gave birth. Fortunately, my mother-in-law didn't bother me during my pregnancy. I guess she didn't want to cause any stress that could lead to a miscarriage. This made me realize that up until now, she had been intentionally being rude to me, but I appreciated that she was being nicer now that I was pregnant. However, it was my husband's behavior that bothered me. After I got pregnant, he didn't bully me as much, but he started coming home late from work. He worked on weekends more often, and I noticed he was always on his phone, grinning and typing messages. I started to think maybe he was cheating, so I hired a private investigator. A few weeks later, the results confirmed it. My husband was having an affair. His lover was a subordinate at his work. When he worked late or didn't want dinner, he was meeting with her. When he went on business trips, he was actually traveling with her. I couldn't believe all the evidence. I had no love left for my husband. I decided that after I had the baby, I would divorce him. But then I found out I was having twins. I was surprised and happy, and I immediately told my husband, "Hey, I went to the hospital today and found out we're having twins. Isn't that amazing?" His response was as cold as ever. "Well, that's nice." I couldn't believe he was so uninterested. I had no feelings for him anymore, but I still wanted him to care about our children. I realized that was too much to ask. I decided to stop talking to him. My mother-in-law, however, was very happy when she found out about the twins. "Kate, you did it. It's twins and they're both boys." Even though my mother-in-law had bullied me, now I felt she was better than my husband. From then on, my husband and I mostly stopped talking. Every meal was silent. I didn't even want him to come home, and I was spending my days that way. Finally, the time came for me to give birth. I decided to go to my parents' house to have the babies. I told my husband, "I'm going home for a while." "Oh, okay," was all he said. Our relationship was so cold that we didn't even speak casually. I went to my parents' house where I had some peace. Even though I had decided not to talk to my husband anymore, seeing his face annoyed me, so staying at my parents' house was much less stressful. My parents were excited, saying, "You're going to have a warm family soon. We're going to have 2 kids at once. Isn't that exciting?" I told my parents. They were both boys, so things were going to be lively every day. I felt a bit uncomfortable telling my parents I was getting a divorce because they were so happy about the babies, but I had to tell them the truth. "I'm sorry, but Steve and I are getting divorced after the babies are born," I said. My parents were very surprised. When I explained everything, their faces turned red with anger. "I can't forgive that man for having an affair," my father said, looking like he wanted to go punch Steve. I stopped my father and told him I wanted to wait until after the birth. My parents agreed, and I gave birth to my babies without any problems. The twins were cute, and my parents were overjoyed, holding them in their arms. Meanwhile, my husband ignored my calls during the birth and didn't even show up at the hospital. After I was discharged, I went to our house to pick up my things. It was Saturday, so my husband would be home, if he wasn't with his lover. When I arrived, both my husband and my mother-in-law were there. They stared at me with angry faces. "You are such a ___," my mother-in-law said. I was shocked. "What are you talking about?" "Steve told me those babies weren't his," she said. "You tricked Steve into raising someone else's kids. You're a horrible woman." I was stunned. My husband then spoke up, saying, "You're a terrible woman for having an affair. I can't stand you anymore. I want a divorce, and I won't pay child support." He handed me the divorce papers. I was so angry and disgusted. I couldn't believe he would come up with something so ridiculous. "Fine, let's get a divorce," I said, taking the papers and filling out my section. When I handed them to him, he looked surprised, probably because I wasn't upset. "You're admitting to adultery, you lassie ___," he said. My mother-in-law crossed her arms and glared at me. "I'm going to get my alimony. You need to pay me." I calmly responded, "Oh, I'm the one getting the alimony." "What? What are you talking about?" they both asked. "You had an affair," I told them. "You're the one who has to pay alimony, you idiot." I told my noisy mother-in-law to be quiet and then spread the evidence of my husband's affair on the table. When my husband saw it, his face turned pale. My mother-in-law stared at me, confused. "What do you mean?" she asked. I replied, "It seems you've been having an affair with a younger girl for a long time, even before I got pregnant. You're the one who had an affair. I have proof." "Do you have proof that I had an affair?" she asked. When I said this, my husband stayed silent. "You don't, do you?" I said. "So, are those your children? Are you having an affair? Say something." My mother-in-law raised her voice, something she usually didn't do, and said, "You saw how sad I was about your father's affair, and now you're doing the same thing. I'm sorry, my husband mumbled when she confronted him, almost admitting his guilt. I realized my husband's mother had also been divorced because of infidelity. That made my husband a real scumbag. I'm so sorry, Kate. My stupid son did terrible things. I'll make sure he pays alimony and child support, she said. Mom, don't make decisions for me, my husband shouted. If you have an affair, you'd better know you'll lose everything. You destroy your family and your relationship with me. My husband was shocked when his mother said that. I felt grateful that she was on my side, but that didn't mean I forgave her. You're right, this is unforgivable, I said. But the stress from your past actions will never go away. What? My husband asked. I've kept all the records of your abuse, I said. I'm filing a claim for mental distress. I'll also file a claim for moral harassment against you, I added. When I said this, my husband's eyes widened. Hey, that's not going to happen. How much do I have to pay? He asked. Well, I said, child support is about $100,000 and the alimony is about $40,000. So it's $140,000. Oh no, he said. Good luck with that. Let's talk through our lawyers. I packed up my things and left. Through my lawyer, my husband and I successfully divorced. He and his lover paid me a lump sum of alimony. I also made sure he paid child support, which is about $600 per month. My ex-husband went deep into debt and his lover left him. He was also disowned by his mother and now lives a lonely life, just trying to pay off his debts. Meanwhile, I returned to my parents' house. They helped me raise my children. I found a new job and work hard every day. My twin sons are very cute, and they are my comfort. Just looking at their smiles gives me energy. I will keep working hard for them. My ex-husband not only harassed me, but also had an affair. What a scumbag he is. It turns out that his mother also suffered from infidelity in the past, but she bullied her daughter-in-laws, so there's no excuse for her. I don't feel the need to forgive her. I hope Kate will have a happy life with her lovely sons from now on. Thank you for watching until the end. Please subscribe to our channel. See you in the next video.